He's back! Omar Sy stars in part 2 of the French mystery Lupin. Does this second half give us more intrigue and excitement, or is it a waste of our time? Assane's quest for revenge against Hubert Pelligrini has torn his family to pieces. With his back to the wall, he now has to think of a new plan, even if it means putting himself in danger. So part 2 picks up right where part 1 left off. Assane's son, Raoul, has been kidnapped, and the excitement then just picks up from there. Now, just like in part 1, there are only 5 episodes to this. Omar Sy continues his portrayal of Assane Diop, and he's still just as cunning and quick thinking. Now, episode 1 has a ton of intensity and starts the second part off with just a huge bang. And after that episode, the series does slow down a bit so that it can ramp back up at different times. And I like how the story is really just a continuation of part 1. I mean, I don't know, but they may have even filmed it all at once and then broke up the parts just to keep us wanting more. Now, I really enjoyed the tricks that Assane played in part 1 that would lead us down one direction and then do this quick change to add a twist and then change the expected outcome for us. And there are a few times that this happens in the second part, but not quite so many. And I missed those because they added a lot of excitement to the overall story. We never knew how Assane would get out of a situation, but when he did, it was unique and clever. This part focuses more on Assane proving that Pelligrini is corrupt. He's still also trying to prove that Pelligrini had his father killed and staged it to look like a suicide. We get to see more of Assane's best friend, Ben, in this part as well. We did have some establishing story with him in the first part, so now we get to see more of him in action, and I think he's a great addition as more of a major player. The cops in their pursuit are still present, but it feels like they take a back seat to what Assane is trying to accomplish. They're in the background working some of the case, but it really did feel like they were more of a driving force in the first part than in the second half. And I like some of the new scenery we get to see in this. There's a creepy old mansion, a beautiful opera house, and even the catacombs under Paris. Everything fits with the tone of the scene that they're in and just reinforce the mood of the story. Something that I really liked, especially towards the end of this season, is the soundtrack and score. There is this building orchestral piece that plays, and the way the song just pairs with the on-screen action, it worked to effectively raise my blood pressure as the intensity grew, and the music paired perfectly with the action. The novels of Lupin, which are the inspiration of the show, they work their way into a lot of the narrative in part 1. In this second part, there are some instances of the written work, but they feel less involved, just like the tricks that were played by Assane. I think the action is still just as exciting as it was previously, and the overall chase in this season is compelling, and I felt a good sense of urgency as Assane races against the cops and the clock to prove what he needs to in order to satisfy his conscience. The show continues to show us events and then take us back in time, whether it's a few days or a few weeks, so we can see what the setup of an event was or how something came to be. And I like the out-of-order storytelling because in this instance, it not only works, but it increases the level of mystery. Now, while most of part 2 focused on Assane working to prove his father's innocence, there is a lot that hones in on Pelligrini and his actions. Somehow, though, parts of the story felt a little rushed to me. And I'm not sure if it's because there are only 5 episodes and they try to cram a lot into the 40 to 50 minute runtimes per episode, or maybe it's just that the chase is happening so quickly that as events unfold, it makes the show feel like it's moving really quickly too. Now, I don't feel like I was cheated out of narrative or that portions of the story were lacking. I mean, I do feel like I got a well-rounded and thought-out story that not only built up mystery, but it provided resolutions and answers to certain questions. Maybe some of the rushed feeling is that some characters only pop on the screen here and there and don't get a lot of focus. So for example, Claire, Assane's ex-wife, is on and off the screen even though she has some big importance to part of the story arc. Another example is Gadira, the cop who's a big Lupin fan and figured out who Assane was in part 1. Now, he plays a large role at the beginning of this part and then all but disappears only to come out in small ways throughout the rest of the show. He's still really important to the story and he has key moments, but the way his participation started out in this part is not the way that it ends. The show is really easy to binge, and not only because of the small number of episodes, but also because it can just suck you in. And I was a fan of the first part, so I was excited to check this part out. That may have also added to the ease of binging for me. I do think there was opportunity to slow down the pace a little to make it feel less rushed, but that could also affect the thrill of what's going on, and I wouldn't want to harm that excitement by slowing the show down. So if you enjoyed the first part, you'll probably want to see how this story continues to play out. If you haven't seen the first part though, you definitely want to watch it first so you can get all the background on all the characters. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and some brutal violence. I give part 2 of Lupin 3.5 out of 5 couches. So are there any good mysteries you're watching? I'd love to know what you've seen in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.